We're on.
Jimmy, welcome to Maribyrnong.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Jim.
You don't have to respond like I'm a teacher. That's okay.
You've had a tour of the school. First of all, I'll get your impressions of that. Of course, you were a Geelong boy, so you went to school out that way. Was there anything like this out of Geelong back all those years ago?
No, I'm incredibly amazed at the facilities you guys have got. As I parked the car, I checked out all the hockey courts and tennis courts, and Mr. Smith here showed me around the gym facilities. It's incredible what you guys have got access to. Even your teachers, the sporting background of all your teachers here is unbelievable. I only wish I had something like that down in Geelong to have access to, and yeah, I would have jumped at it pretty quickly.
So let's go back to those days. Let's kick it off from there. St. Joseph's College is where you did most of your high school. You were a pretty good cricketer. You made the under-16 team there. I think you played in the first 11 as a 16-year-old. You made the under-17 Victorian state cricket team. You're also playing football. How did you go about making the decision as to whether football or cricket was going to be your sport of choice?
I think it's changed a little bit. It shows how old I am now, but that was around 2000, 2001, and there was just a lot more opportunities with football. And once you finished the under-17 National Carnival for Victoria, you pretty much picked for football straight away. So I was a young year 12, so I was 17 through my year 12 year, and playing the Vic under-17s, went into year 12, played a football season, and then I was drafted. So it was almost like football made the decision for me, and I wasn't one kid who was super focused on, well, football's it, and I just play a bit of cricket for fun. I enjoyed all sports. Absolutely love my cricket. I'm still obsessed with cricket, and if I was to be brutally honest, that's still my favourite over football, but I think I got a fair bit out of football in the end.
Were you still playing a bit of cricket during the summer season while you were in AFL football?
Yeah, my first few years I'd play football and then go play a cricket season for my local cricket club, a sort of a sub-district level. So you've got your district cricket up here, obviously your Melbourne, St Kilda and Geelong, but played sub-district for Geelong West and kept playing all through pre-season. So I'd do pre-season training at the Cats on a Saturday morning and then quickly throw my whites on for Geelong West and play all night. I was pretty tired by Saturday night, but then I broke my finger playing cricket, which put a stop to that pretty quickly. The football club wasn't very happy, but I remember I played Hawthorn one year, round one, before the Easter Monday clashes kicked off, and then we played on a Friday night, and then I had a cricket grand final Saturday and Sunday, and then went back to footy training on Monday.
Well done, well done. Let's go back to those early days again. You mentioned you had that year of cricket, and that year of footy before you were drafted. That was year 2000. What an amazing year it was for you. Let me go through some of the achievements. You won a premiership with the Geelong Falcons that year. Starred in the under-18 championships. You won the MVP for Vic Country. Won All-Australian selection. Made the TAC Team of the Year, TAC Cup Team of the Year. An amazing year. And we talk to the kids here all the time about making the most of your opportunities early as a youngster to set up the rest of your life, and how important it is to do the right thing when you're young, so then you can reap the benefits later on. And I suppose that year in 2000 is a real testament to that.
Yeah, 2000 for me personally was a great reward. For 1999 for me, I actually got cut from the Vic under-16 side by Leon Harris, which if he's here.
He's not here, but gee whiz, we'll give him that, don't worry.
I always remind Leon that he cut me from the Vic Country under-16 side, but then 12 months later all that happened for me. And look, in all honesty, I would have cut myself, and so I think that's probably a key for you guys in sport, is to give yourself an honest appraisal. I wasn't ready, I think, to play for Vic Country at under-16 level. I was mature. I wasn't as mature as some of the other boys, being 12 months younger. But what it did was it gave me a heap of drive to work harder, and every day after school I'd work on my kicking and handballing, and even I'd go for a little bit of an extra jog or run. When I'd go down to my local football club, Bell Park, I'd train with the under-16s there, then I'd jump in with the under-18s, and then sometimes I'd sneak in for the last drill of the under-18, the seniors, sorry. So I went and asked people a lot of questions, so it was a good turning point even at an early age for me for my football. And then 12 months later, I managed to make my way into the under-18 Vic Country squad, even though I was 16, and was lucky enough to have a pretty good year playing for the Geelong Falcons.
Luke Hodge, played with you that year in 2000, and then in 2001, because you were too young to be drafted in 2001, you got to play with the Falcons again. Gary Ablett Jr. turns onto the scene. Matt Maguire, another good footballer who played. Fair team.
Yeah, it was funny. In 2000 we won the Premiership and only had 3 players drafted, but 2001 we had 10, and we didn't win the Premiership. So it was that old saying, champion team will beat a team of champions. And that 2000 side, we had a lot of guys who played senior football in the country. So the Geelong Falcons zone goes from Geelong all the way down to Warrnambool at that stage, and we had a lot of guys playing senior football at a very young age and just knew how to gel together and actually played for each other. And it probably took us a little bit longer in 2001 to get that idea.
You were a Richmond supporter as a youngster, which is great. So draft time comes around. You're obviously hoping to get drafted to the Tigers. That didn't happen, though. You got drafted to Geelong. Take us through that night for you, for your mum, your sisters, and just how emotional was it to finally realise your dream of wanting to play professional football?
Yeah, you'd expect sort of myself to be jumping on the couch or tears of joy, but my mum was a school teacher, and education was massive in our family, and Mum always drilled home the fact that your sporting career can finish with a click of fingers. You could do your knee, you could break a leg, you could just be not quite good enough for what you're trying to achieve. So keep working away with your education, and then you can have a lot more fun with your sport because you've got this in the background. So I sort of approached the draft that if I didn't get drafted, well, I'd done enough in my schooling work, and I could go explore other things, even other sports if I wanted to, and that I just love playing football. So being drafted, I'll take that opportunity. I'll be grateful for it, but it doesn't mean I would have stopped playing football. And it was the only year that the draft wasn't televised. It was when they were swapping over networks. There was no radio, so it was at the Melbourne Tennis Centre. And Michael Turner, who was the Falcons football manager, drove myself and Luke Hodge up there, and in the car we got told Luke Hodge was going to be the #1 draft pick, and so Mick Turner was incredibly focused on him and how great's that going to be, and he turned around and just said, you make sure you look happy when he gets drafted #1. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So his name gets read out, patted him on the back, and I actually sort of then just made my way down to the back of the room. So it's like everyone's in chairs, and actually just an old projector screen. They were flashing the names up, and I just sort of tuned out. I'd done my job to congratulate Luke Hodge, and they were up to pick 35 before I realised it. And then I sort of got up and walked to the projector screen and couldn't find my name. And then a lady was there, and she goes, what name are you looking for? I said, my name. She goes, you've been pick 8 to Geelong. That's great. Rang my mum, and my mum's a pretty understated lady, and said, I got drafted. And she said, that's good. Where are you going? I said, Geelong. She goes, great. What time are you going to be home for dinner? So that was about as much celebration, and we went home, and just I started training at Geelong a week after that. So I had my Year 12 graduation, and then I had to kick the football to the guys that I went and watched play only 3 or 4 weeks ago.
You mentioned your mum and education. She actually took you and your sisters overseas for a year, didn't she, to America? You had a year over there. Yeah,
so I played American football and baseball before I ever played AFL. I went over there when I was 10. My mum got a teaching exchange. She did it by herself. Took myself and my 2 older sisters over there, and a place called Lincoln, Nebraska, which is right in the middle of America, and it's freezing cold during winter, and just got an amazing experience there. And then they have their 3-month holiday, so you get your longer holiday over January and February. The summer, they have their 3 months in the middle, and they break their school year up that way. She bought this old camper van, and she drove us through, I think, about 35 states of America, which every day was like a school lesson, unfortunately. Mum would stop at something, and it was almost, you'd have to learn what that sort of point of interest is about, and she'd grill you at night over dinner what you'd learnt.
We'll talk more about your mum a little bit later on, but I want to get back onto the footy and the fact that when you were drafted to Geelong, those first couple of years were pretty tough. I think you finished 12th, 9th and 12th in the 3 years before it really started to turn. You were good pre-season. I think you won a NAB Cup Premiership. You made a grand final another year. Talk to us about going to a club where things aren't going that well in the first couple of years. Do you sort of start to question the decision?
It didn't sort of question it. It was we knew we had talent. We had an interesting time at Geelong where 90% of the list was 21 and under. So we had a lot of young talent who were given opportunities, but it was a bit like the point I made with the Geelong Falcons side, that we got to a point where talent just isn't good enough. Every AFL side has talent. If you put them out at training, they can all, hit a target from, you hope they can, from 30 to 40 metres away. They can handball, they can run and jump, but there's more to it than that, especially in a team sport. And we just didn't understand what that was, and probably for a lot of us, we were very happy to be playing AFL football. And I guess the line that hit home to us is we had too many players counting their games but not making their games count. So they were very happy to play one game and then, geez, I'm up to 50 games, or I'm up to 100 games, instead of being impactful for that 50 to 100 games.
End of 2007, there's a massive review into the club. It looked like Bomber Thompson, the coach at the time, was going to go and all this sort of stuff. But let's talk about 2007. 5 games in, you 2 wins, 3 losses. The club's culture was severely criticised by Paul Chapman, and also I think Mark Thompson might have come out in an interview as well and talked about it. That led to a discussion between the players, the officials of the club and everyone to talk about exactly this culture that was going through the club. I'd love to know what you guys spoke about and how that turned out, because from that point on, you won the next 15 games in a row, lost a game to Port Adelaide just before the finals, and then won the final game of the year and all your finals in an amazing turnaround. That I think you beat Port Adelaide by nearly 120 points or something in the grand final.
Yeah, that was a good day, winning a grand final by 120 points. It's nice and relaxing doing that, especially against Port Adelaide, because they're no good. We don't like Port Adelaide too much, but that had been built from the end of 2006, and it was actually, they call it the review, where just getting people back into what they do well. We had a lot of people who were spread across trying to do different things within football departments. It was doubling down on our strengths and stop trying to be everybody else. I think as a club, we'd watch Brisbane win Premiership, so we tried to copy what they did. We saw Sydney and West Coast play a certain way, and we tried to play that way, which wasn't in our skill set. And so I guess Bomber identified what makes Geelong's teams great, and that's that attacking flair, aggressive nature, the way we play. So why don't, if we're going to, sounds funny, if we're going to lose, we might as well lose going down our way. The start of the year and the Paul Chapman comments, look, Chappie gets credit for him, and of course he should, but he was speaking on behalf of the group. So behind closed doors, we identified that we were just wasting each other's time with the performances we were putting out. And playing AFL football, again, is a privilege, playing elite sport, and we should make the most of that. And again, let's stop drifting away from what we do well and have hard conversations with each other, but just take the message out of them, and they're not supposed to be personal. So that was what we sort of said behind closed doors.
So I suppose what I take out of that is a couple of things that are really important in a club environment, not just football, but any club environment: leadership and culture. If you can get the culture right and you can get everyone basically working together, and you've got the people who are at the top leading that, then you can have a successful career. Yeah,
it's probably something for you guys to take on board. It's accountability and for owning your own actions. So control what you can control. So often people, when they lose, especially in sport, they'll blame umpires, they'll blame conditions, they'll blame equipment. But really, ultimately, it was, well, what did you do? Did you put in the most effort? Did you prepare as best as you can? Did you challenge yourself to get better? So it was just asking those questions of yourself and then putting them into place. You can talk about them and you can write them on the wall, but it's how you act them out.
2007 was a fantastic year for you personally as well. It was a year that you won the Brownlow Medal. You're a fairly a personal sort of guy. You're a fairly private guy is what I'm looking at. Talk to us about the attention that was then thrust on you the week of grand final week. So not only are you going to play in the grand final that week, but all of a sudden at the start of the week, man, you're the Brownlow medalist. Take us through how you dealt with that.
Well, I was pretty happy we were playing in a grand final, because if you won the Brownlow, and being as young as I was and weren't playing in a grand final all week, you'd be out in front of the media, which I wouldn't have been too comfortable with at that age. So I went home because I took a teammate up with me as my Brownlow date. I used to live across the road from a pub, and there was about 50 blokes who had been drinking too much watching the Brownlow were on my front doorstep. So we sort of skipped past my house and we went and stayed down at his place. And then the next day I just did one big media conference. and then put it to bed, because my sole focus was, I've always wanted to do is win an AFL Premiership, and then I had that opportunity within 5 days. So I was able myself personally put it behind me, but it wasn't until actually since I retired I've been able to reflect on what a great week it was winning a Brownlow.
What a great year it was too. And the most amazing thing about it, I'm not sure whether too many people here would know about it, the kids, you actually had burst appendix a couple of weeks towards the end of the season.
Yeah, so I used to play a round of golf each week with our 2 club doctors and a couple of other guys, and I was living by myself, and when you're a young guy you start to try and learn to cook new things for yourself, and I thought I'd cook something pretty bad, and I had a massive stomach ache, and I was playing with the doctors, and I said, I think I've eaten something a bit crook, my stomach and back hurts, so they've just given me something for that. But then the next day I tried to go to training, and we were just doing a warm-up lap, and every time I can remember my right foot down, I was getting this massive pain going through, my whole body. And after one lap, I was about 100 metres behind everyone. I thought, something's wrong here. And they pretty much went up to the doctor and just poked me straight in the stomach. He goes, I think we better send you to the hospital. Went up to the hospital, and he did the same thing. I'm going, why is everyone poking me in the stomach? And he goes, I think your appendix are about to burst, but what we might do is they can settle down, go home. So the club doctor actually drove me to his house, and then I just went into a cold sweat, and they rushed me into hospital, and lucky I had a club doctor and the ability at Geelong to get into emergency straight away, and they were able to pull my appendix out there and then.
Because you can get a thing called peritonitis, which is blood poisoning, and that could be pretty fatal.
Well, I would have, as well as that, but definitely if it would have been left, I reckon, a couple of hours, I would have missed 8 weeks of football, which would have meant I missed the finals and Geelong's first premiership in 44 years.
Yeah, and that would have been a disaster. So you win a premiership, first in 34 years, as you said. The whole city is celebrating. The whole of Geelong's behind you. Talk to us about keeping focus and motivation the next year. How do you do that when you've already achieved the holy grail of winning that grand final? How do you then keep focus the next year around to do it again?
I think it's pretty easy to want more. There's no greater feeling of achieving a goal that you've put in front of you for so long that you just want to keep doing it again. So a lot of people say you have to lose one to be able to win one. I don't necessarily believe in that. The feeling after winning 2007 made me want to win one every single year after that. Even before then, I couldn't watch an AFL grand final. I'm a little bit of a bad loser when it comes to that at AFL, because for me, watching a grand final with a side that's not Geelong is watching your competition succeed. And I used to go training on grand final day. That was my mindset, that I had to get a head start on them to beat them in the next grand final. So winning 07, I just wanted to win every single year after that.
2008 was the year that Hawthorn beat you, and that started up an amazing rivalry between you and that club, didn't it? Not just you personally, but Geelong and Hawthorn.
Yeah, it was great. The best thing you want to do is challenge yourself against the best, and even in training, I used to want to do that. I'd go find Gazza or Joel Corey or Corey Enright, these sort of guys. If we're doing marking practice, I thought, well, why wouldn't you go practice on Matthew Scarlett? Now, he might beat you 9 times out of 10, but the one you beat him, it means a lot more. And then also when you go into a game, is there much better than Matthew Scarlett that you're going to be playing against in a marking contest? I don't think so. So you're putting good prep in. So why I love playing Hawthorn is they were the best side around along with us, and so I got to play. I wanted to challenge myself on the MCG in front of 80,000 against Hodge and Mitchell and Roughhead and Franklin at that stage. Like, if you got to win then, you actually felt like that's a pretty good win.
2009 you got the chance to beat them. 2011 you beat Collingwood. So 3 premierships in a short period of time. You played your 300th game before you retired. Footy's been pretty good to you, hasn't it?
Yeah, football's been great. I think the best thing out of sport, as you guys know, you meet some great people and a lot of like-minded and driven people as well. I think that's the best thing to take out of sport is the people you meet, but also the values that sport puts into your life that you can take into work, into family, and everything else like that.
I want to talk to you about life after football and life even before football as well, and it all comes around to you being a domestic violence campaigner, and you've been really solid on that over the last few years, and there's a great opportunity for us here to talk to the kids about that period of time and the fact that your dad was a man who physically abused your mum. He abused your sisters physically, yourself even, I think, got thrown across the room at one stage by him. He was a drinker, he was a gambler, he left home and left you and your mum and the rest of your family when you were 1 year old. You're out there now spreading the message about how damaging domestic violence can be for people.
Yeah, it's something, I guess, in the latter stages of my career, I felt I was mature enough and ready enough to speak on it. Also, I understood the platform that AFL football has. You guys pick up the paper, and we haven't started the season, and it's still on the back page. We talk about it on different radio stations. It makes news even in December, doesn't it, now? So I understood that I had a platform to use, and you only have to just hit a Google search, and the numbers of are staggering and quite shocking and rather embarrassing for this country, who considers itself to be very progressive and very forward, that 1 in 4 women will suffer at the hands of domestic violence. Now, you look around and we've all got a sister, a mother, an auntie, even the teachers have got daughters, that we still have that going on today. It just shocks, and I'm in disbelief that it still goes on. And I thought, we have some great female role models, and as I said, football, you can use your platform for positive, and playing football and growing the big beard and the hair, I thought was an easy conversation starter. So when you took your kids along to the footy and they sat next and go, geez, Jimmy looks silly with the big beard, well then you can have the conversation with your children around respectful behaviours, and the whole issue on domestic violence in whatever way felt comfortable for you, because I didn't want to ram the messaging down people's throat. I wanted them to approach it in a way they felt comfortable.
For you got the opportunity, I suppose, to confront your demons. Your father passed away in 2010, but before that there was an incident with one of your sisters and her newborn son, your nephew, and then you got the opportunity to talk to Dad. Did anything change for you at that point in time?
Oh, it was that point when I had the last conversation. It was a massive change in my life, because that was, call it the line in the sand moment. That's another, using the sporting cliche sort of thing. But for me, he was the first of my nephews and myself and my sister's kids. So it was a real moment for us where, that was another generation that could be possibly exposed to seeing this and almost accepting it as a normal behaviour, and I thought that had to stop. So probably the best way at that stage was to cut all ties from him and start, I guess, a new life where, I guess, my nephews, I've got a lot of nephews now, actually know that sort of behaviour is not appropriate.
As you mentioned, it affects a lot of people in a lot of ways, and we've got 600 kids here and teachers and the like, and it probably affects some of us in some ways, whether it's at home or whether it's people we know. A message you'd give to these guys about how you deal with that and how you should sort of move it forward?
I think, like I said before, with anything, is own your own actions and your own behaviours, and I think if everyone does that, if you treat someone how you expect to be treated, or how, for boys, I guess this is the message, speak to women and use language that you'd expect someone to use to your sister or your mother. Now, if you don't think that'd be okay for someone to talk to them in that manner, why is it okay for you to talk to someone in that way?
That's fair enough too. You do a lot of other work as well with the Alana and Madeline Foundation, Challenge Kids with Cancer, also Cottage by the Sea, and you still do a bit of work, I believe, with the Geelong Footy Club as a sort of a social worker type thing. And Geelong is an amazing area, isn't it? It's been kicked in the gut so many times over so many years. It's a real interesting mix of people in that Geelong region. Yeah,
it's a great place to grow up. It's they love their sport down there. There's, for I guess, call it, if the greater Geelong, you call it about 300,000 to 400,000 people. It's probably getting bigger now, but there's over 40 local football and netball clubs, so they're a bit mad for their sport down there. It is an interesting mix. It's certainly changing. It was built off the back of industry, so a very middle-class city it's historically been, but it's becoming a big multicultural area, especially out in the west of Geelong where I grew up. So there's an interesting mix of people who are going through all sorts of real-world problems.
Yourself, post-football, you've done a bit of media since then and the like. What's the future hold for Jimmy Bartel?
I'm still trying to work it out, to be honest. I'd finished studying, finished up my degree and other sort of courses and things like that. I've been working as well during the week, and then just experimenting a bit in the media with the likes of yourself, and talking all things football and general sport. I love sport. I'm obsessed by it. I can watch any kind of sport, and I just find it completely fascinating.
Can the Tigers win another premiership this year? That's what I need to know.
Well, my tip is a Richmond-Melbourne grand final.
That'd be interesting in my household because I've got a wife and a son who both for Melbourne. And
oh, they're the two supporters.
Yeah, and I'm exactly right.
Well, so they got the murmurings there. So if you, I didn't say who's going to win. I just
no.
I think Richmond. You call it back to, people might remember the game where they got beaten by GWS, where they were up and they had a kick in and went the whole length of the field.
Yep.
The following week, I think they had like a penny dropping moment where they all need each other on board. And fortunate enough to do a lot of football media, I've been out on the ground when they've had their quarter time and 3/4 time huddles, and it clicked for me that they are the real deal. I think even when they played Hawthorn about round 17, and they were praising the likes of David Asprey, Grimes, even Castagna and Butler for the role they were playing, just as much as they were patting Trent Cotchin and Alex Rance, because those guys knew how important for them, doing all sort of the other little dirty work, you call it, was for them to be able to play their role. And I thought these guys actually get it.
A final one, and I know a lot of us are involved in SuperCoach. Should we pick Gary Ablett in our SuperCoach team?
I think you should pick Tim Kelly from the Geelong Cats. There you go. He's sort of what they call a rookie. I'm not big on SuperCoach, so if I get the terms wrong, but Tim Kelly. Okay. He'll play a lot of games, and even Sam Menegola.
Then I'll rephrase it. Will Gary Ablett have a good year at Geelong this year?
Gary Ablett will kick 40 goals this year.
That wouldn't be a bad year at all. I'll just have a look at Miss Waltlake. Are we close to time? Couple of questions we can, if anyone has any for Jimmy. I know one was asked earlier on for me to ask you about when you did have the big beard. Was it hard to eat your food? Did you get food stuck in it?
I did. Cereal was the worst. I'd spend...
Oh, you get the milk, it drips down here.
Yeah, so you'd carry a serviette or a napkin, depending what you call them, in one hand and your spoon in the other, so you'd take a mouthful, wipe your face, take a mouthful, wipe your face. So I don't miss it, to be honest.
Any questions out there, guys? We've got time for a couple of quick ones. Down the back, you'll have to yell it out nice and loud.
Brave. Yeah, good question.
Just repeat it first, Jim.
I hope I get this right. That hard to balance both study and as well as professional sport. Is that sort of what you're asking? I hope that's right.
A lot of our kids have to do that all the time.
Well, I actually got taught a really good lesson when I think it was about 16. One of my local football coaches, a really good guy I'm still in touch with, and he was big on maximising your days and getting at least one opportunity out of every day. Was his big thing, and he actually sat me down, and again, I was very lucky. If you go home and you draw up your week, Monday to Sunday, and you put it all in 1 hour blocks, he said, go through and shade, your sleeping, and when you're eating, and your school, and your sport, and whatever else, even an hour for friends or your favourite TV show, you'll actually find that there's so many 1 hour blocks each day within your week that you can actually use to either study or do whatever else interests you. And that way it's I still do that to this day, and that's what helped me with studying and getting that balance, because I was saying I've got 2 hours there, I've got an hour here, and by the end of the week I was having plenty of time. So it was more about being organised and being focused, and it actually didn't become a stress. I put in my training. You'd have a long training day, we call from being there, get up from 8, get home at about, lucky being Geelong, it only takes you 10 minutes to get home from training, about 4 o'clock, and I'd even still take an hour and a half just to settle down from training, but then I'd find, well, there's an hour there. I only have to do an hour of reading whatever chapter I need to read. Next night, I just have to punch out some words on that assignment. So that's how I sort of balance it. I don't know whether that answers your question, but it took the pressure away. So I wasn't, geez, a footy flat out, I've got to do 3 exams in in 10 hours.
So time management and structuring your day. That's the advice from Jim on that one. Final question, anyone? Yep, in the middle.
34,
I was going to say.
Well, I'm 34 now.
Oh, 32.
32?
Yeah.
32. But so I was at Geelong when I was 17. So I had 15 years. It's a long time.
It is a long time. Injuries? Any major ones?
No. Well, I don't think they were major, considering, I got to play 305 games. So I had a number of concussions, but I just had hip surgery, so.
Oh.
So I've got a dodgy hip.
One more.
NBA fan. I'm a massive NBA fan. I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan.
Ooh.
But I'm not a bandwagon jumper.
No, I'm sure not.
I used to go for the Seattle Supersonics as a kid. And they got relocated to Oklahoma.
What about NFL?
Seattle Seahawks.
There you go. And what about NHL? Are you a hockey man?
No, not a big hockey man.
No.
EPL?
Tottenham. Nice.
Oh, boo.
Nice. A few high fives going around.
A lot of booing.
The bell is about to go, kids. So what about a big round of applause for Jimmy Bartel?